And welcome back to Late Night Lately, the Late Night Show. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the Late Night Show for the website, cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. Episode 55. I was going to say 56. I'm one ahead in my mind. You know, usually earlier, this is so stupid and this means nothing in the long run, but a long time ago, like years ago, when the Constitutionals was the only podcast I was doing, I used to the way I don't know how I know I would do episode 1, episode 2, or whatever, but one of the biggest hurdles I had was keeping the number straight. And I know sometimes on this show and LinkedIn logs and Constitutionals, I'll go episode 12, and it's really episode 13. And now in the Notion page, where I have all of the separate Notion pages for the podcast, I'll have whatever current episode it's currently on, and at the end of the episode, when I post this episode to Pinecast, the RSS feed, so it goes out to the world. With only a handful of you listening, I go back to whenever I do the metadata for the thing, I'll delete the current episode title and then I'll put it, or episode number, and then I'll put it in the next number. And even still, I mess up. But that's neither here nor there. What happened in late night this week? Well, everybody was back save for Seth Meyers. They already planned 2 weeks off. It felt kind of strange just having sometimes this happens on on CBS with Colbert and After Midnight. Sometimes one of them will be off. Well, let's say this. Most of the time it's After Midnight being off. If Colbert goes off, After Midnight doesn't get ratings for that week. All right, what happened this week in midnight? Well, in late night. Well, and After Midnight, in my eyes, there was one episode that needed to be seen from top to bottom. And that is the episode with Jonah Ray, Kumail Nanjiani, and Emily V. Gordon. It was chaos. It was so funny. The three of them have worked together. 2 of them are married. But the three of them have worked together on the oh goodness me, what is that show that they did they had a comedy show together for years before it became a real TV show. Also, it's nice to see Jonah Ray out and about. That sounded kind of dickish. It is nice to see Jonah Ray out and about. I love Jonah Ray. He's a very funny guy. What is the show that was on Comedy Central? I cannot for the life of me remember it. I'm scrolling through his IMDb and I'm having so much trouble. It's not Trip Tank. What is the show? Anyway, they appear together, and it was the Meltdown. It's called The Meltdown. That place is no longer in operation, I don't believe. And it was very funny. It was a very funny show. In fact, the late night portion of the show, where they sit down on a couch and they have a chat show for a handful of minutes, they were meant to play a game during that time, and it was, as I wrote, dismantled. Just from the get-go. It was just a horrible idea of a game, and Kumail and Emily and Jonah were very quick to destroy even the thought of it. So funny. Additionally, Essence Atkins, Affion Crockett, and Tachina Arnold appeared in the first episode. Hannah Pilkey's, Rachel Scanlon, and who else? Zach No Towers appeared in one of the episodes, and then at the end of the week, Drew Afualo, Bob the Drag Queen, and Tefi Pessoa were in the episode that ended this week. I'll give you a little behind the scenes look. When I started this episode, This is the horniest thing. I was like, who are these two women? Drew Afualo and Tefi Pessoa. Just immediately did a very long deep dive on them. And you can still see it if you click on the URL. You can still see the Googles. Instagram. Go to the history. Conan O'Brien appeared on Jimmy Kimmel this week to talk about him hosting the Oscars. It was a very nice and long interview. When you get these people who don't appear on late night often or haven't appeared on a long time, I believe the last time Conan was on late night was when he popped up on the Tonight Show, maybe last year. You want to talk to these people for a long time, and dadgummit, it's one of the highest rated clips this week. Drew Carey, Chris Pratt, Regé-Jean Page, Natasha Rothwell, and Mindy Kaling all stopped by as well. And Soccer Mommy performed. You know what sucks? And Nathaniel Rateliff and Gregory Allen Isaacoff. I know who Nathaniel Rateliff is. This is something I've noticed with The Tonight Show, and now I'm seeing with Jimmy Kimmel, is that this is... I don't know why he got up and sprinted. With the music's not getting as high of views anymore, or unless it's like somebody that people like truly want to see, and you can see that on every late night show. It's the monologues that are getting all of the views, and every so often when you, as I mentioned previously, when you get someone who is just universally liked or big, whatever, their interview will do gangbusters as well. Like the Conan O'Brien interview is 20 minutes long and it has as of recording 1.3 million views. But Regé-Jean Page is one of the up and coming actors. He was on Bridgerton. He was on my favorite project, Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Is that what it's called? The Dungeons and Dragons movie, which is a movie I love, which we'll never get a sequel to. And his interview is sitting at 69,000 views. It's fascinating to me. Lionel Richie's at 33,000. Kelly and Mark were also appearing on the show. They're at 46,000. It's just so it's crazy to me. These shows book good people, and good bands. I'll say the music bookers for Kimmel are just amazing. And yet, this is what it is. Moving on to The Late Show, which I will admit I did not watch a lot of this week. In fact, I can attest to only watching several minutes of this show this week. I just did not clock it. But I knew who popped up, including the RZA, Father John Misty, Guy Fieri, Pamela Brown, who I used to work with, Bong Joon-ho. She wouldn't know. Pamela Brown would not know. Just kidding. And Bong Joon-ho appeared with an interpreter, which is great. And she did a lovely job. Woody Harrelson was up, and Wendell Pierce. Again, these interviews are so crazy to me. Like Al Roker was on last week on the Late Show, and yet you don't see a lot of views. Tamara Tooney. I did the minutes that I did. Well, again, I only watched a couple of minutes, not including the Bong Joon-ho interview. I watched all of that, but aside from that, I guess you could say I watched roughly 20 minutes of that show this week, including the totality of the Bong Joon-ho interview. So 10 minutes alongside. You know what's interesting is Kimmel. This is not interesting to anybody. Kimmel moved to, when they initially were posting on YouTube, posting clips on YouTube, they were posting more or less the interviews in two parts between which would be broken up between commercial breaks. So that Conan interview would be roughly 10 minutes, and then part one, and then part two would be 10 minutes. But now they for years they've just been doing the one whole video, be it 8 minutes, be it 20 minutes, whatever. And then for After Midnight, because they are a panel show, they have the liberty of being able to put everything up in clips. The Daily Show, they do everything. Their interviews, they're short, but they put them up in one. Same thing for the monologue. They put them up in one. Same thing for the on the street bits. They put them up in one. And then Last Week Tonight, we know, uploads full episodes. And Tonight Show and Late Night, they also do. I think Late Night does one video. Let's see. I don't want to be caught with my hand in my pants. Is that what people say? Let's see. Emily Spivey, John Hamm. Yeah, looks like it's all one thing. One video. But for the Late Show, they still do 2 broken up videos. Now, I know it's for view counts and for clicks and things of that nature. But at this point in time, wouldn't it be better to have everything in one video so that you get essentially all the clicks? Like the Monica Lewinsky interview that Colbert did last week is 8 minutes total, and it has 642,000 views. And then there are 2 different, from last week again, 2 different Robert De Niro videos, portions of the interview. One is 7 minutes, and that's at 760,000. And the other is nearly 4 minutes, and it's at 302,000. But I promise you, if you put them in the one video, you'll have 1 million views in no time. Because people see that. And now that YouTube is essentially what people are treating as television, as true television, because they're beating. I just swiped away something, a notification. Quite frankly, well, here's a little side note. Let me finish that sentence. YouTube is now beating Disney and Netflix in terms of views. I just swiped away something about Gene Hackman's death, and I want to stay. Oh, I knew that. If you didn't know, their bodies they were found. I'm not breaking news here, but apparently they'd been found almost mummified, essentially mummified. So they've been dead for weeks. It's crazy. That's crazy to me. I'm sorry, I didn't even go off on either of those 2 tangents. But if anything, I would just put them all into one video because people are treating YouTube like television, and so. If I can click on, I'll name who am I subscribed to? I don't know anymore. If I can click on a Doug DeMuro video, I do like Doug DeMuro. If I click on a Doug DeMuro video or a Car Wow video and it's 30 minutes long, I'm going to sit there. I'm going to watch it. Sometimes I'll jump around, but if I see 2 interview things, I'm more likely to click on the one that sounds more interesting. But if I see one full interview of Tate McRae on the Tonight Show, I'm gonna eyes are gonna be glued. Oh my God! I saw. I don't know if this was in the comment section of when SNL announced Shane Gillis was coming back to host with Tate McRae as a musical guest, but I saw a comment that said. The Straights are going to be happy this week, and then next week is like, who's hosting next week? Anyway, but like Straights are going to be happy this week. And I was like, buddy, I'm only happy with Tate McRae. And I had a little laugh. I didn't write that. I'm not going to comment on anything. I don't comment. I lurk. Jimmy Fallon's Tonight Show had Gabriel Iglesias, Mark Ruffalo, Jason Isbell, Floyd Mayweather, Simu Liu, Tate McRae, Jeff Probst, Kate Hudson. And I don't know who that is. Matthew Tuchuk and Billy Crudup. And Chelsea Handler. And he also talked about SNL 50. I skipped over somebody who's a comedian who I've interviewed on the Constitutionals. Caitlin Pelufo. She's a very funny comedian. You should check her out. I think she's great, and I'm glad that she appeared on Tonight Show. I reached out to Chelsea Handler's. Oh, Waxahachie performed. I didn't know that. Speaking of people I like to listen to, Chelsea Handler, I reached out to her people to talk about her new special. Did they respond? No, they did not. The reason why I went off on that tangent about the view counts is because I was scrolling through the Tonight Show looking for a clip to share for this week in late for this section and This Week in Late Night, and I saw Billy Crudup was on the show, but his at the time of this recording, his interview only has 20,000 views. I'm thinking that's Billy Crudup, and then I scroll up and Kate Hudson only at 53. But people want to see. No offense to her, and I love Tate McRae because she's a beautiful woman. But Tate McRae's is at 428,000. And for some reason, that dumb illiterate Floyd Mayweather, that woman beater Floyd Mayweather, is at 332,000. Oh my goodness. One day I will do something about the I think I did an episode about theme songs, but I'll do a better one. But the theme song, the Roots theme song for Tonight Show is just, it's fantastic. Gets me going. Seth was off, as I mentioned. Daily Show came back. Jon Stewart cut his hand on air, and this is apparently the second time this has happened. But Desi Lydic hosted this week. She spoke to Wendy McClendon-Covey, Rosebud Baker, and Gabrielle Union. And then Troy Iwata had a little bit about Elon Musk's dance moves, and it was so funny. It was just a very funny thing. And then we end with Last Week Tonight. I believe the last time I talked about this show, I said they were coming back, and then I was like, oh, they uploaded the video. It's called Mass Deportations. That's not new. That was something, I know my mistake. I noticed my mistake. That's not new. They came back last week with Trump 2.0, and they talked about Trump in office. And then this week they had an episode about Facebook and content moderation. I'm glad I believe they're caught up on uploading all of the segments from past seasons, which is good. I don't know who's going to go back and rewatch those, but it's nice to have that for archival purposes. In the same way that I'll go on my I know I've mentioned this before, but on my YouTube, I have a playlist called Talk Show Bests, and going back and rewatching things from like 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, last year. Is it like old closer looks that are thrown in there? I'm like, why did I save this? Then there's like a 2-second joke that I really liked. No more topical stuff in there. I have to delete a little of that stuff. But Oliver is back. The same show as ever. Speaking of John Oliver, Last Week Tonight went back to next day posting, which is fantastic. That was the only people they were hurting were themselves, and it wasn't their decision. I'm sure if they could stream live, they would stream live. I probably wouldn't do that, but that would be bad for ratings. Stream live on YouTube. They would stream live on YouTube, but that would be bad for ratings. I think it would destroy the show on Max, but on HBO. The going back to next day posting is smart. Warner was stupid, or HBO, the HBO brass, was stupid to make them wait till Thursday to upload the main segment of the show, because it'll only cannibalize your viewers. I mean, if anything, it would make people forget that the show is on. They wouldn't be able to be part of the conversation. If you look at every other late night show, because that's what this is ultimately, taking like if you weren't able to, if the Daily Show didn't post the Jon Stewart's monologue on Tuesday morning, who would watch it? Because not everybody has cable to watch that. Not everybody has premium cable or streaming to watch HBO. So now you're out of the discourse when you intentionally remove that part of the conversation for the majority of the week, because whatever he's talking about on Last Week Tonight, or for any monologue for that matter, it's going to be out of date a couple of days later, no matter how on topic it is at this point in time. It's still going to be out of date. As a side note, 2 weeks ago, the Last Week Tonight releases their first the first episode for the season, and it's called Trump 2.0. 2 days prior to that, both New York Times' main podcast, The Daily, and Wall Street Journal's business podcast, The Journal, both release independently an episode called Trump 2.0. I go, that's so strange that these three things are all named Trump 2.0. This week, both The Daily and The Journal have their episodes again titled Trump 2.0. We have to stop doing this. I also realized I'm not wearing a watch. It was charging, and I went on a walk, and whatever. But let's get into the meat, or let's finish this thing out. Speaking of John Oliver, he appeared on 60 Minutes. They did a 60 Minutes sit down with John Oliver, covering how he appeared at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival when he was starting out as a comic, and they covered his what's it called, growth in that area. I'm trying something new. I'm showing the video as I talk about the video, and I've hidden all the details. If you don't know what the Edinburgh Fringe Festival is, it is an arts festival in Edinburgh, and it's a month long, and people will perform their shows, and they try to get people down to come and watch it, and Jon Stewart performed stand up there for a handful of people some nights, and sometimes you get sold out crowds, sometimes you're performing for nobody, sometimes you don't perform. And it's just a nice way for I know people who perform there. I've talked to people who perform there, and it is just a very interesting thing to see that he was there as well. And then also they have a bonus video called 60 Minutes Overtime, and you get to see more behind the scenes of the conversation that was had with Jon Stewart, with John Oliver. And they're both fascinating videos. You should check them out. I knew a majority of it. And Seth Meyers pops up in the second video because he and John Oliver perform stand-up together. But it's a nice thing to see. Yeah. Light week. The cat is on the table. And the dog is barking. Okay, guys. Everybody's hungry. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got for you. Listen, that's all I have for you. Excuse me. If you like what you heard here, head on over to the website, cpluscomedy.com, where you can see we talk to famous people sometimes. Most recently, I talked to Mo Collins from Mad TV and Parks and Recreation fame. She was also on The Walking Dead, one of the Walking Dead shows, for a very long time, which I had no idea. And then now she's on Night Court for an episode. Check out the interview. It was very fun. I brought up a Mad TV character because I'm a fan. That's available on youtube.com/cpluscomedy in comedy form. Comedy in video form. And then you can also watch video versions of this show, as well as the other podcasts, LinkedIn Logs, which is the Jobs podcast, and the Constitutionals, which is the entertainment business news show. Subscribe to those shows wherever you get your podcasts. And if you can follow us on social media, including Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at C Plus Comedy. I'm at Chad Black White. Thank you so much. Bye.